Jerry Brown's taxes will be defeated in 4 days.
Our state is in a real mess. We have to live within our means. Don't shrink because you got a few little taxes. You know, suck it in. Everybody's got to give a little. We want to raise everybody's taxes.
This is John and Ken's Tax Revolt 2012.
I'm as mad as hell, but I'm not going to take this anymore.
John and Ken Show. John Coupal and Ken Shampoo, KFI, AM 640, more stimulating talk radio. Tax Revolt 2012, heads on a stick. Ken is away today. So every day for the last 2 weeks, we've been profiling one of the propositions on the ballot. There are 11 of them, numbered 30 to 40, and today is the last day of the countdown.
Oh, I just thought of something.
What's that?
Ken's not here, so we don't have to listen to that song.
That's right, because no one's going to queue for that song.
Excellent news.
So it's not going to play.
You're safe, everybody.
That's right. That's your ears won't bleed. Prop 30 is the most famous one. It does the most damage. It's a potential $50 billion tax increase over the next 7 years, 0.25% sales tax increase on everybody, income tax increase on those making $250,000 or more. And John Coupal from the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, he's the president. He's going to help give a closing argument why it should be no on 30. John, thanks again for coming on.
Oh, you're very welcome. Another subcommittee meeting of the Legion of Acceptability, I understand.
Just the two of us here. We definitely don't have a quorum today, but we can do we can do subcommittee work. So talk about because a lot of people who don't hear our show don't listen. Most of the information they're getting about Prop 30 is the ads, both your ads and the Yes on 30 ads. Talk about the Yes on 30 ads. Talk about the falsehoods.
Well, it's the Yes ads it's for the children. It's going to save the schools. You notice they don't use the T word. They don't mention that it is a tax. So that is the number one deception in the Yes on Prop 30 ads. As a reminder, Prop 30 is a $50 billion retroactive tax increase, meaning that even though we're voting on it in November, it would apply to all income earned throughout 2012. This does not begin on 2013. So it's a $50 billion retroactive tax increase. The other falsehood is, to the extent that they do talk about the tax, they talk about taxing the rich. Now, we understand that may poll well, but the one thing they ignore is, of course, the increase in the sales tax. Obviously, everybody who buys stuff in California pays the sales tax. And they say it's only 0.25%, a quarter of a cent increase. Well, that's true, but keep in mind, California already has the highest state sales tax rate in the United States of America at 7.25%. This would kick it up to 7.5%. We believe that California's tax burden is crushing already. And for people who are concerned about fiscal issues, the tax burden and what that does to small business and what that does in terms of driving people out of the state, that's enough of a reason to vote against it. Now, we all know people who may not be as fiscally conservative as we are and would consider additional taxes for education if they thought it would help correct the system and if, in fact, the money were actually going to education. For those people out there, number one, this doesn't go to education. It is a supplement to the general fund. It relieves the general fund. The money does go into a separate account, but it relieves the general fund's obligation to education, basically freeing up that money. So the question that people need to ask themselves before they vote is, do you or do you not believe that our state politicians have used your tax dollars wisely up to this point? And again, the people who answer no to that question are not just fiscal conservatives. There are a lot of people who would like to see additional funds going to education, but they say, look, I am in no way ever going to support anything that provides more resources to a dysfunctional, failed system.
Well, if they wanted to guarantee that the money would go to the schools, they would have written that into the proposition. They did not. There is no guarantee.
There is no guarantee, and that is the one difference between 30 and 38. Now, we oppose 38, which is Molly Munger's income tax increase proposal.
But it's a more honest one, isn't it?
It's the more intellectually honest because it specifies where the money's going to go, and it provides baseline additional dollars, not just, hey, it goes into education. Oh, and by the way, we flush the money out the back door. So when Governor Brown, with all due respect, is around the state saying we can still afford high-speed rail and we're going to spend $300 million next year on high-speed rail, understand that money could go to prevent all the proposed cuts in the University of California. But he and the majority party in Sacramento have made the conscious decision not to cut other things other than education. They have put education on the chopping block, and by the way, that of course raises the most interesting point, and that is when Proposition 30 fails, and these so-called trigger cuts, automatically $6 billion taken out of education. Not true. Trigger cuts in the past, in fact, just last year, were rescinded. So given the political strength of the public employee unions, you can bet your bottom dollar that when Prop 30 fails, that there will be a huge effort to restore the so-called trigger cuts to education.
That's the thing I'm most sure of. If this thing goes down, they're going to find the money all of a sudden to restore to the schools. These trigger cuts will be reversed. That's the biggest load of baloney of the entire election season. This idea that they're going to defund the schools and cut a month off the school year.
Yes, and keep in mind that just last year there were, in 2011, $2.5 billion of trigger cuts built into last year's budget, and they restored two-thirds of those of the funding. When they pulled the trigger, they came back and they restored at least two-thirds because some of the money that they were anticipating. Remember how they said, well, the Facebook IPO will get billions of dollars. Of course, that absolutely fell through. And that, again, for people who are not as politically engaged as you and I are, and many of your listeners, is that people, although they may not know the numbers, they know that the gimmicks are out there. And there's no bigger gimmick out there than these trigger cuts. And there's no bigger gimmick out there than Jerry Brown building into this year's budget, the budget year that we're in. He included revenue from Prop 30. And he said, well, because I'm assuming it's going to pass.
So there's like a $7 billion increase already built into the budget. That's right. In fact, the total budget passed by the California legislature and signed by the governor is $142 billion. That's not just general fund, that's special funds and federal dollars. But that is the largest budget ever passed in California. So when these people claim that they've suffered irreparable harm from the cuts we've already sustained, it is so much baloney. And the good news, John, is I think people intuitively know that. They've been lied to so many times by Sacramento politicians. It's like Lucy and Charlie Brown in the football. How many times are we going to believe these people that they're going to save education when, in fact, there's no reforms in this thing? Can you hang on for another segment? I sure can. I want to talk more and talk about, just your sense of how this race is going for Prop 30. John and Ken Show here. John Coupal, president of the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, as we go through all the reasons to vote no on Prop 30, the $50 billion tax increase, sales and income tax, and all the lies in the Yes on 30 commercials. And then after we're done talking to John, if there's any listener out there who legitimately wants to argue why we should pass Prop 30, you can call it 1-800-520-1534, but we're just looking for a serious argument here, not a joker. John and Ken, KFI, AM 640, more stimulating talk radio.